what I'm going to share with you are keys to winning in this business. And it comes through ethics and integrity. It comes through running the business the right way. And so I'm excited about this because this is the difference between building a championship organization or a mediocre one. It's the difference between building something that's going to be very temporal or something that could last. And so, what I want is for everybody to have an intention that the business that you're building, the team that you're building, is the place to be. Like, I want you to create an environment and a culture that's fun, it's inclusive, it's caring, it's respectful, it's professional, it's safe. And that only exists when you've got a leader that's building a business of culture with integrity, trust, ethics, and work ethic. All those things make that happen, right? What this does is it produces a team that will be productive. It's a team that will stay with you longer. It'll be a team that'll have a high degree of work satisfaction. It'll have a team that values dependability, that follows through, that desires to contribute more and to bring people into it because it's the place to be. They want their friends to be there. They want to be there. They're proud of it. They brag about it, right? A team built upon integrity always develops better leaders. It fosters a positive environment. It promotes ethical decision-making because when you do the right things, it attracts the right people. It will develop strong, resilient teams that want to collaborate, and it actively builds and maintains trust with your people. And see, trust is what makes for a great manager. High trust managers, this is pretty cool. High trust managers experience 74% less stress in their office environment. The opposite is also true. So managers who are not highly trusted have 74% more stress amongst their team, which means there's more gossip, there's more negative undercurrent, there's people who doubt and are looking for what's the spin game on that person when they're speaking, all those kind of things. All that undermines your influence, right? So here's the other thing. When you have a high trust management relationship with your team, you're more likable, which makes you more effective. As a matter of fact, the millennials, as far as the stats on this, millennials are 22 times more likely to work for a company that values a high trust integrity based culture. In that same stat is that companies with high trust workplaces usually outperform 2-to-1, so doubling in earnings those that are not deemed that way. When you think about our business, this is a relationship business. The relationship with our people is our driving management force. See, we work with independent contractors, totally different than an employee organization. See, an employee organization, I mean, they're on salary. They basically have to do what they're told. In our organization, our power comes from influencing people and coaching and guiding them, but they have to make the decision. So if we're trying to influence people to make good decisions, you have to have a relationship of trust where they actually respect what you have to say and they want to follow after your lead. So all of this happens when this is an intentional focus. We used to always say this as a kid, but it was like monkey see, monkey do, right? That's so key because if you feel like you don't have people that are committed, that are tied into you, if you don't feel like they're listening to you, if you don't feel like you're being effective, then you need to look and ask yourself, am I actually operating at the highest sense of integrity, care, right? Ethics? Do they feel like I care about them more than I care about myself? That's a good way of thinking about how do you measure that? Do they think that you're all in it for yourself, your business, your goals, your whatever? Are you into it for them? Are you into it to make that impact, as we've heard so many other people say, right? Are you committed? Do you make the sacrifice when they need it, when it's difficult, right? These things are what managers of integrity do, right? I think this even goes to the micro measures, which would be things like, how you dress. Do you dress to impress, or are you a little too casual, or do you not take it as an important thing? I used to teach my reps that if you've got the attire, you need to wear it. Dress in a suit. Do you know how much more effective you are when you show up to Mrs. Jones' house with 105-degree weather and you're there dressed in a suit? That's like, you show that you care. You show that you're into this. You show that you're putting your best foot forward. They are going to take you so much more serious. Same thing goes in your office. Same thing goes on your Zoom. Same thing goes on all of those things, right? How you think, how you talk, how you behave, how you operate. Monkey see, monkey do. They will follow you, or they will follow the impression that you give them of you, which is sometimes even scarier to think about. It's kind of like, well, you should listen to me. I'm the DM. Oh, you should listen to me. I've got silver cups on the wall. Well, you know what? That's not enough. They're going to follow what you do. You can't lead in do as I say, not as I do. Do as I say, not as I do. That never holds water. So anyway, you get the idea. Here's a quote that I want you to take down. People don't leave businesses, and rarely do they even leave for better opportunities on their own. They leave leaders. So think about that for a second. They leave leaders. They don't leave the job. They leave leaders. And when you take that responsibility, that's when you'll become a great leader. That's when you will have droves of people maximizing the opportunity. That's when you're going to have the most rewarding team you've ever thought about running. How do you build those kind of relationships? Let's break this down a little bit. So what are the key foundations? Here's my simple formula, right? How do you start building a trusting relationship of integrity? It starts, number one, with your first impression and your rapport building, right? How do you come across first impression? What feeling do you give to people when you're serving, working, introducing them, recruiting them, whatever those things may be? Are you impressive? Do you make a good impression? Do you come across as someone who's genuine, right? Number two, then it goes to respect and appreciation. Do you show respect to your people? Do you appreciate who they are and what they're doing, not what they have or where they came from, right? Respect and appreciation. The third, professionalism, support, work ethic. I kind of put all those together. But as a professional, are you giving them the kind of support you promised? Do they know that you've got their back? Are you taking responsibility for their success? Are you working your tail off to make sure that you're available for them? That all leads to trust. Those things all lead to trust. And when you have that, it rapidly moves to love. And your people will love you, and you will love them, and you will love your organization and what you're doing. So let me just kind of redefine respect. This is how I view it. Using this word as a blanket word, I would say this. Respect is honoring your people for who they are, showing gratitude for their efforts, being responsible and dependable in your follow through on your commitments, and honoring the policies and culture of the organization or the expectations of the leader. And I think that's kind of what I would put under the banner of respect. And that's the key, is if you really want to boil it down, when you're doing the right things, you're respecting your people, you're respecting your leaders, you're respecting your company, you're respecting your peers, right? Those are kind of the four main categories, right? Let's talk a little bit about what that might look like. How do you respect your peers as a manager, right? Well, here would be a little thing. Always complain up, not sideways and not down. You're going to have tough days. Sometimes, you're going to be the windshield, and sometimes you're going to be the bug that gets squashed on the windshield, right? And on those days, you're going to feel like complaining. You're going to feel like, venting. Don't vent to your fellow branch or district manager. Don't have pity party calls in the middle of the night afterwards or whatever, during the day. That's not going to help them. It's not going to help you either. You want to vent up, right? your manager knows how to help you, how to get you past that, how to make you better, right? Here's another thing, as on how you can respect your peers. You need to respect their territory. If you get a PR name from somebody that's in somebody else's territory, hey, send it to them, or send it to Texas Schedule and recruit them for their office. Whatever it is, right? You'll still get 5%. You create a great opportunity for that rep locally with that manager, and your PR, on your team is building their PR team, right? I mean, there's a win. But respect their territory. By doing that, you're going to pay more attention to what you have here, right? And what's in front of you, and you'll build a bigger and better business. I think about this. I think about respecting your territory. And you might think, well, how does that affect my peers? Absolutely. We all affect one another. If you don't treat your schools, your campuses right, you could shut down a whole campus, and that campus is related to all the other campuses in the area. And then they hear about it, and then they then block access to other cities and other schools, because of what you did wrong on your school. So it's so important to follow the rules. Don't get kicked off of campus. Don't get kicked out of office buildings. Don't create negative circumstances that could pollute a market. You might have a kid that goes to your school, but they live in another territory. They're going to move to that territory, and then they're going to bring that baggage to that territory. So we do not operate in a vacuum. What we do with our territory affects everyone. And so taking that seriously matters, right? And in the same sense, don't cut corners on your ethics. Like when you cut corners and you do something that breaks the rules, or where you do something that's illegal, or you do something that's not appropriate, that cannot just limit your opportunity. It can limit your whole division's opportunity, the way they view your entire division, right? The way they view your division manager, the way they view me as your region manager. People will make biases on that because, again, monkey see, monkey do, right? And so it's just natural to think that must be how everyone is. That's not fair to your peers, right? So I want you to think about that. When you think about respecting your peers, that's one of those categories, right? I'll put down the next one, which is respect your leaders, right? Don't feed your DVM a bunch of garbage. If they're calling you and saying, hey, how's this going? And you're just going, oh, it's great. Yeah. Oh man, I've got a whole bunch of things going on, and things are perfect. Everybody's rocking and rolling. This training class is going to be great. When you've got like 4 people set for training, when you don't have people booked for your interviews, be honest. See, it's so important. If you want to do well in the business, your division manager is going to be one of the best tools that you have to making your organization great and hitting your goals. But you got to tell them the truth. You got to tell them your fears or your doubts or your frustrations or your challenges. You got to tell them when you screw up, right? Don't be afraid of your division manager. Don't let your ego tell them something that is an exaggerated amount of work that you've done or results that you're actually getting, right? Because here's the consequence of that. It would be like going to the doctor and you're sick and you don't tell them all the things that are wrong. They're going to misdiagnose you, right? You got to know this. Your leaders only want one thing for you, and that is for you to be successful. So give them everything they need to help you be successful. I'm going to give you a third one. Show respect to your company, okay? We have to protect vector marketing, because vector marketing is the well source that we all drink out of. So, if your actions create, a problem, right? Like a lawsuit, or, or like a viral social media, crap storm out there, right? I mean, none of that is going to help our company be strong. And none of that's going to empower our company to help and empower us, right? So there's never a place where it's okay to, cross the line, with somebody on a personal level, on a social level, on breaking the law level, on disrespecting or mistreating anybody, right? All of those things just create liability and risk where somebody could come after and attack, and sometimes it doesn't even have to be the truth, meaning that somebody can just be mad and could attack because, I don't know, a misunderstanding that you didn't say I'm sorry for, or that you didn't follow up on, or that you dismissed somebody, in a disrespectful way, and you bruise their ego, and they're going to show you, right? There's no reason ever, even if somebody wronged you, even if somebody stole from you, even if somebody did the worst thing you could come up with, there's no reason to ever retaliate back in a way that's going to make it worse. In those situations, you pick up the phone, you tell your DVM, you call the company. We have great procedures in disarming anybody that's upset. And let me just promise you, it doesn't go away if you ignore it, right? So you handle things. If they come up, you handle them immediately. You take care of it. You always take the high road. You always, be beyond gracious, and you err in their favor, because it's better to not die on a mountain of being right on something in the moment and kill your business or kill your reputation, right? Or kill your company. So it's important that we are thinking of those kind of things. Here are some other things that will help to protect our business. Number one is terms of training. Now, some people may not realize that that's an actual really important document. It's something that at the beginning of day one of training that we fill out in the first few hours. Why is that? Well, because that terms of training puts something in writing. It's a legal form that says, I understand that I am coming to training and that I'm not getting paid for training, and I'm going to be an independent contractor, and I'm joining this team, and I understand that. That's really important. Why is that important? Lots of reasons. One is if there's a misunderstanding, and then they finish training and they think, oh, well, you owe me now for, however many hours of training, 15 hours of work, and it's $20 an hour. Okay, I'm expecting a $300 check when I finish my day 2 of training. Okay, and then you say, no, I never said that. And then that person's like, you owe me money, right? Well, that's exactly what created a lawsuit for us a few years ago in California. And that person actually was told that they weren't going to be paid for training. It was documented in other ways, but it wasn't in a contract form. Well, that person ended up getting mad and said, well, you do owe me. I don't think that's right. The manager kind of blew it off. They said, no, you misheard that, whatever. They didn't diffuse it. That person got mad. They went to some ambulance chaser. That person then filed a class action lawsuit, which in California, that's a bankrupt state. They mismanage their money. And this is how they make a ton of money, is a class action suit. So they said, well, we're going to allow it. Well, what ended up pursuing was years of fighting through this. Cost us nearly $11 million as a company. And we were innocent. Well, so it was like, we can't afford to have that happen more than once, right? I mean, we don't have $11 million laying around every time somebody wants to make somebody angry. So that's a really important document, which will protect us from ever going through that again. So I just want to make sure that you understand the importance of that document, and that's being done correctly. It's being done by the rep and so forth, right? That's a simple thing, right? Here's another one that helps to protect us, right? And that is, I know that there was a time where people were changing zip codes or addresses because they were out of their area, because they wanted to keep them, because they felt like they were justified in doing it because, I don't know, it was a PR, or it was somebody, they didn't feel like somebody else would have gotten, so they self-justified it. Well, the problem with that is that that's fraud. And, it's actually could be a felony fraud depending on the intent behind it. And it creates problems for the rep as well, besides the illegal activity. What it does is that rep now doesn't get their fast start prize. So that's not good that's not going to help that rep have trust when they're not getting their mail, right? Because they have a fake address with the company, right? Also, they're not going to get their IRS forms. So they're not going to get their, 1099. They're not going to get their information that they need for tax purposes, which then they're calling up going, I never got this. What's going on? Or they don't pay it because they never got it. They don't think they owed anything. I mean, all those things are obviously creates serious troubles, right? Another one would be, forging the DocuSign for the parent contracts, right? Maybe you're in a hurry. Maybe you forgot to do it. Then you just go, oh, I'll just do this, or the rep just goes, well, I'll just do it for my parents, or whatever the case may be, right? You think no big deal because they know their parents are supportive. It doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. You cannot forge a DocuSign document. That's a felony, right? I mean, that could cause us to not be able to ever recruit a high school person. That could create a situation where we could be banned on lots of different recruiting fronts as a company. Like, it's just not worth it. Being sloppy, cutting corners on these kind of things, you got to protect our business, right? Hopefully that all makes sense. Here's the last one I'll give you, and that is changing a birth date, right? Somebody's going to turn 18 really soon, but instead of waiting a couple of weeks, you say, oh, I'm just going to start them early. No big deal. They're basically 18. Just change your birth date. You can't do that, right? Same exact thing. Because what you're doing is you're bringing somebody on, and in some states, it's illegal to bring that person on until they're 18, right? And so, again, you can create massive problems. And here's the problem. If somebody's under 18, we have no legal recourse on them, which means that whatever they say goes. If they said, my manager said I was going to get paid $10,000 guaranteed at the end of the summer, guess what? You'd have to pay that. You have no legal binding on that rep. Zero. Unless you have something. So you can't do it. So I want to make sure that's clear to you guys. So again, that's why it's important we have the parents contract on there. It's kind of like getting a co-signing on a loan, right? Makes sense? You don't have protection with that. Here's a little one that I think is a big deal. Base pay. This is one of the best things our company does for us, right? We pay between the region and the company, we pay 75% of that base pay. That is so generous. That's so amazing. The reason we do that is because we want you to, without aggression, we don't want you like trying to beat people out of getting paid. Yeah, maybe some demos are a little questionable. You can ask, but don't be like a private investigator, getting in their grill. It shouldn't be an interrogation to go through every demo, right? The key is keep those demos short, so that you don't have a ton of them, and you can kind of coach and teach your people what the best practices are. Of course, if somebody's like, oh no, I shouldn't get paid on that one, that's cool. But you can ask them. It's okay to kind of qualify, but it shouldn't be like this intense thing where they feel almost bad about getting paid. The worst thing you could do is pay someone base pay and then they feel bad and they quit. You basically just paid them to quit. What you want to do is pay them base pay, teach them, help them, and they are so fired up because I got paid even though I wasn't very good, but I'm excited to get good. I'm excited to make more. This is the greatest company in the world. They're doing exactly what they told me they were going to do in the interview. I think you get the idea, right? Let's talk about how you respect your people, and this will be my last segment, and the most important one, and the one that has the most bullets. Here it is. Here's the first line I'll give you. This is an easy barometer. I gave you one earlier. Here's one for your reps. Treat everyone as you would like to be treated. It's a real simple thing. Treat everyone as you would like to be treated. Okay. Look, every single person that comes through your organization, whether it's a touch, a phone call, a text, whatever the case may be, right? They are all due the same respect, regardless of age, sex, gender, income, status, intelligence. We're all God's creation. We're all someone's son, daughter, brother, sister. I was always taught that you should treat everyone on your team like they're your younger sibling, and your parents would kill you if they don't do well or have a great experience. So think about your people like that. Here's some little things that show respect to your people. You being on time. You need to respect your people's time. You need to respect their efforts, right? If you're late to everything, that shows your people you don't respect them. You don't respect their time, right? I think about your AMs, even your reps. But if you give them a schedule, right? You need to give them a schedule in advance so they can plan the rest of their things around it. Ideally, your AMs should know their schedule for a couple of weeks out, and you need to honor that schedule. Like, you can't be the manager that's like going to your AMs all the time going, hey, I know you're not scheduled this, but can you come in? I really need your help. And you're doing that like all the time. You can't be the manager that says, hey, if you're not doing demos, you need to be in the office. Okay, that's not a schedule, right? I mean, so it's really important that people know when they're expected to work, what they're going to do, and you honor it, right? Okay, that's respecting them, right? That makes a big difference. And then the same thing goes in return. Then they'll respect you and not just bail out on you last second. You know, they'll give you more notice if there's a conflict with their schedule. It goes both ways, right? Again, monkey see, monkey do, right? And the other thing is please and thank you goes a long way. You know, your AMs, how you treat your AMs, like if you're barking orders all the time, if you're like the super cool hotshot DM telling people what to do, a branch manager's like, oh yeah, those are my people, go do this, go do that. You got to treat them like a business partner, right? You want to bring them in. You want their opinions, their ideas. You'll actually have better ideas overall if you include them in the process, right? You know, that goes a long ways. You know, we talked about being a person of grace. You know, your people are going to screw up. We work with young people. Guess what? Old people screw up too. I'm pretty old. I screw up. Okay. People make mistakes. It's important that you handle your people with grace. You could still hold them accountable, but you could do it with grace. Right. And I think that's really important because, you know, again, you know, giving them what they don't deserve, right, is what grace means, right? It's still giving them blessing, even though they don't deserve it, right? Your reps are going to mess up. Use those screw ups as a learning opportunity, a teaching moment. Don't use it to shame them. Don't use it to fire them. Don't use it to take them off of pay, right? That shouldn't be your go-to. A place of fear or being being unpleasant. People won't trust you. They won't share with you. They'll be afraid of you. You're not going to build a business off of fear. You're going to build it off of the relationship, the respect, right? Okay. Here's another thing I would say: timely follow-ups. You know, if people send you a text, send you an email, somebody leaves you a voicemail, it's your team. They probably need something. You know, I know you're busy, but they're like at home, like waiting, right? I mean, you got to think about it like that. So follow-up is so vital, right? I remember Amar Devay taught me. He said, you know, availability is equivalent to reliability. You know, I mean, you got to be available for your people. Somebody's got to be there when they need help, right? You know, he also said reliability is just as important as ability. You know, so you need to be available for your people and you need to be reliable to your people. They're counting on both. And when they don't get it, they leave. Okay. Other things, you know, I think about when you can over communicate, do it. Right. I mean, you know, we say so many things, we put so many things out there, you know, messages get buried, things get lost. You know, we say things and we think people got it, but we didn't really make sure that they actually got the message. You know, sometimes people get about half of what you say. So it's good to say, hey, are we clear? You know, it's good to clarify. It's good to follow up with a text or an email. Hey, I'm glad we had this conversation. Just want to recap the things that we talked about. Excited about where we're moving forward. Those kind of things go a long ways to, again, build trust and consistency. Here's the other thing I'm going to talk about, and this one's really important. We can't objectify our people. And this happens in so many different ways, right? This could happen from a sexual sense, you know, oh, that person looks really hot, or making comments about, in an inappropriate way that relates to either appearance or, who they are, what they're about or whatever. Sometimes it could even be a nickname that you think is funny, but it's only funny in a personal sense, not in front of a crowd. I mean, those go, just being sensitive about those kind of things makes a difference, right? But also, it's not talking to somebody like they're a commodity. Okay, so what would that be? That'd be like labeling or stereotyping. That would be like, That's a bad, they're poor quality or they're good quality, right? That's such a derogative way to talk about anyone. Oh, that's a poor quality applicant, or that's a poor quality person, or that person's low quality, or they come, oh, that's a low quality ad source, or oh yeah, none of those touches are any good. Like that's you're basically calling people low quality, bad people like that. We can't use verbiage like that as it pertains to people. They're people, right? So this is important. You could also, though, do it when you're trying to be positive. Like you could say, oh, yeah, oh, they're so sharp. They're so sharp. You know why they're so sharp? Because they came from this high school. Or they're so sharp because their parents do this. Or they're so sharp because they live in this neighborhood. Well, as a parent, when you raise your children, you don't tell your kids, you're so smart because you made an A on that test. They're not intelligent because they made an A on a test. Because when they make a B on a test, you're telling them that they're no longer intelligent. Your kid isn't sharp because their parent enrolled them in a high school. You could have a kid on your team that could be the sharpest kid that ever walked in your office. He might go to public school. His parents may not be rich. He may not live in a nice neighborhood, but he might be the hardest working, sharpest guy who you'll wind up working for them. They're so sharp. Like, don't qualify or label people by what they have. Label it by who they are. What makes somebody sharp? Here's the thing that makes people sharp. They're hardworking. They're driven. They're loyal. They're ethical. They want to learn and grow. They're, they implement things well, right? Like praise people and qualify people on who they are, on what they're doing, right? Then you'll have people who will value that. Then you'll have a whole team full of people who want to work hard, who want to be loyal, who want to, continue to grow, who want to do all these character traits, value traits, right? That's how you build championship organizations and you build and grow amazing people. Make sense? Right? Think about this. Your language matters, right? Sometimes we say things and we don't even know what we're saying. The other day, I actually introduced, somebody said, hey, who's that? I go, oh, that's one of Stacy's girls, right? And I didn't mean anything negative by it. But my wife looks at me and goes, you can't say that. And I go, say what? And she goes, you just introduced them as one of Stacy's girls. I go, yeah, they're one of Stacy's girls. They're awesome or whatever, right? And she goes, no, you can't say that. That's like labeling in a weird way. That makes people feel uncomfortable. And I was like, great point. I didn't mean anything by it, but it wasn't the right way to identify somebody, right? So these choice of words matter, right? I've heard people say things like, oh yeah, man, we're so cool. We're so fratty, or, whatever, right? Well, I'm sorry, but if, the same person who is all excited about how fratty their organization is, right? That doesn't describe somebody in a sorority. They don't think of themselves as fratty, right? And that's just such a guy term, right? So like you can't have a boys club. You also can't have a girls club, right? I mean, people, it's got to be inclusive. We can't make someone feel like I'm an outsider in any form or fashion, or you're not going to get the full value from your team, but you're also going to turn off somebody, and that's not fair for their opportunity. And here's what can happen. I talked about perception is reality. I talked about an $11 million lawsuit earlier. That was not based on reality. It was not based on truth. Didn't matter. You don't need truth to cause problems. You don't need truth to cause a lawsuit, right? You don't need truth to turn people off or to get people angry at you or to turn people against you, right? Right? You just need to give the wrong perception. And sometimes you can just give the wrong perception by just not being sensitive. That's why we have the Easy Llama program. I mean, look, it's important that we keep this thing at the forefront because it's easy to get comfortable. It's easy to get in habits that we don't even realize are there, and paying attention makes a difference, right? Because if somebody thinks you're sexist, if somebody thinks you're discriminating, if somebody thinks you're not ethical, in this day and age, they want to tell someone about it. And honestly, they should. They should. And so we need to be better, right? We need to be, as my manager used to say, above reproach. That was the terminology that my manager used to tell us, is that you have to operate above reproach. And so anyway, you get the idea, right? So things that we need to value are things like right attitude, work ethic, willingness and ability to learn, these character traits, right? Not color, not wealth, not age, not sex, not any of those kind of things. Here's the other thing too, guys. I think about paying your people. Nothing makes people more angry than not getting a paycheck. If you make a mistake and you forget to send in paperwork and they don't get paid, you need to own up to it. Don't make up excuses. Don't go, oh, the company lost your check and I'm getting it resent, or I don't know where your check. Just say, hey, I screwed up. I'm so sorry. Your check's going to get delayed. What can I do to make this up for you? Are you going to be okay? You just be honest, right? People are okay with mistakes. They're okay with that. If you've got a paid caller, you need to pay them. If you stop paying them, they'll stop calling. Okay. This is real simple. If you don't have the money, you need to go to your DVM. We'll get you the money, whatever it takes. This is an important thing, right? I think about if you get in an argument with someone, and oftentimes you might be in an argument with someone over something and they're completely wrong, or they're mostly wrong, right? They're just, maybe you've got to keep your cool. It's so easy to want to just shut it down. No, you're wrong. Let me tell you why you're wrong, and blah, blah, blah. Here it is. Okay. And just, sometimes our sales skills kick in and we want to win. We want to win the argument. And here's what can happen. You can win an argument, but lose the person. And that's not worth it. So there are going to be times where you may just have to agree to disagree. And that's all right. There may be times where you just, you just go, okay, I understand where you're coming from. I can see I could see how you got to that place. I don't see it the same way, but you know what? Let's move on. Let's make this, I'll concede, pay them anyway, or give them what they want, or, make a concession and then ask for something different next time, maybe, right? That's an easier way of doing it than just saying, no, impossible, blah, 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 not listening, right? Pick those battles and be smart about it, right? Last couple of things here, this is going under the sexual harassment nature. And this is really important one. Many of you, the new managers on the team here, you've never maybe been in a position of power. Some of you guys are you're in a leadership role. And in that role, oftentimes, that comes with an attraction element. And there may be people on your team that, really are attracted to you. Why? Well, because you're this ethical person that we just talked about, because you're showing care and concern. You're changing their lives. You're doing things they've never experienced or rarely ever experienced. And so there's an attraction. They're like, oh my gosh, I love this person. This person's so great. And so you may also find that attraction as well with them. And, it's just not appropriate to ask that person on a date, or to put that person in that kind of situation, even though they like you and you like them. That's not the right role. You're no longer a peer. You're in a different position, right? So you can't do that. You can't put yourself in that situation. If you're a branch, you got to wait till your branch is closed, right? Then pursue that relationship if there's something there. But not while you're in a position of leadership. It's just not the right thing, because that person could feel an obligation to say yes, or your rejection or their rejection of you, they feel like it's going to hurt their opportunity. That is sexual harassment 101. You just screwed up their opportunity because you asked them on a date. Does that make sense? That's what people get in massive trouble for. It's the quickest way out of vector, right? Here's another one. Don't put yourself in a situation where you could even be accused of something. So avoid any of those situations. What would that look like? You're at an overnight conference. Everybody decides we're going to go back to the hotel room, and a group of people are going to hang out in the hotel room, right? No, you should never hang out in your hotel room. I don't care if it's the same sex. You shouldn't hang out in your hotel room with people. Hotel rooms should not be a place of congregation. Because what happens? Well, you're in there with 4 or 5 people, then 2 or 3 leave. Now you're down to 2, and all of a sudden, you got a bad situation. It happens all the time. You got to avoid those. You're meeting with somebody of the opposite sex. You're doing a PC or something like that. You're in. You don't close the door. You leave the door always open. Right? You just, if you're meeting with somebody and it's a situation that maybe seems uncomfortable, always take a third person. Right? These are the things that prevent you from ever being accused of something falsely, but it also keeps you accountable from having anything happen inappropriately. And it's important, right? Okay. Here's something else. Remember this, in today's world, everything we do is being watched or seen by somebody. If you're on a Zoom, you never know who's recording. You never know who's in the background listening. So don't say anything and don't do anything you wouldn't say in front of your parents or somebody else's parents, or, anybody that, your boss, anybody, right? Because they might see it someday. They might hear it someday. They might be there, and you just don't know. Same thing goes for what you post on a text or an email or a group me or any of those kind of things. You never know what's going to be forwarded. Again, being above reproach is the best and only way to operate, right? A couple little things here. I think about this when you're teaching people sales skills, right? Don't come off in a way that sounds like you're manipulating or coercing somebody to do something against their will. That's like sleazy car salesman tricks. You don't want to ever be in that category. It should always be about educating the customer to help them gain clarity on the prospect of making the best decision, right? That's what we're trying to do, right? Anyway, it's a little thing, but if people feel like you're teaching people to manipulate, nobody wants to work for that person. That's not what we're about, right? I think about this one. This is a simple one, but it's one to write down. Under promise, over deliver. Under promise, over deliver. You'll always win by doing that. It's easy to sometimes say, no problem, say yes to everything, or overcommit to something you're not sure you can actually do. Just under promise and then over deliver is always better. Because then if you under deliver, you still meet what you promised, right? Anyway, here's the thing. Integrity in the little things are just as important as the big things, because everything matters. How you handle little things is what people will believe that you'll do when it comes to the big things. Think about it like this. Somebody gives you the wrong change back in your favor, and you go, sweet, man, they gave me the wrong change back, and you keep the money. Well, that rep's probably going to think you're going to screw them out of money someday too. Or, I don't know, you go out to eat and you're rude or condescending to a waiter, right? Well, that rep's going to think, oh, well, someday you're going to be rude and condescending to me if I make a mistake. Or you gossip about somebody, they're going to think, oh, well, you're probably going to turn on, behind my back and talk about me too. So it's important, that all those things are taken into consideration. I remember Sewell, I remember learned this. Sewell Cadillac, one of the greatest customer service organizations in the world. Now Sewell, Lexus, Sewell, everything. But anyway, the Sewell organization, they used this story. They talked about how, when people walk, they would take their customers onto the maintenance floor, where people were working on the cars and they would point out how perfectly clean the floor was because they wanted to show the care and concern they took with everything. It's kind of like Southwest Airlines, when they first took it over from a failed organization to the great organization it is today, they said, if you pull down the tray and there's a coffee ring on the tray, what do you think? Wow, they're not very detail oriented. I wonder if the guy who's checking the engine is doing the same thing. That's how things work in a relationship business. So here's the deal. Be a man or woman of your word, right? Put your people first, right? And whatever you do, do it well. Don't cut corners. That's what it means to be the best. And here in the Southwest, the South Best, what that stands for is a lot of things. We want to be best in class. We want to be best in sales, development, innovation, leadership in all areas and positions, as well as in our professionalism, right? And that's where we're going to take pride in our identity and how we act, the ethical and moral decisions we make, the judgment calls we make when we're under pressure. The language we use, the way we control our emotions, our self-awareness to be considerate and respectful to everyone, the discipline that we take, the work ethic that we take to be good stewards of this amazing opportunity that our company has given us, and to be amazing at the responsibility for the people that we have under our umbrella. That's what I want the Southwest region to be known for. That's what's going to make us the place to be, the place where people want to work, where they want their friends to work, that they want to brag about. And I'll leave you with this last thing. If you take good care of your people, they will always take good care of you.